like, I'm not a libertarian because I'm greedy and selfish. I'm libertarian because the government just doesn't work. And there is absolutely no doubt in my mind that more liberty, more freedom is better for society. And there hasn't been anything that has proven it more than what just happened, in Parkland, Florida, where you have the government. It's not 39 times that the local police were called out. It was only 28, they say, where 28 times the local police department was called to this kid's house. The FBI had 2 different tips. 4 sheriff's officers were outside of the school cowering in fear instead of actually going in and stopping him from, injuring 14 and killing 17. And it is one of the most breathtaking displays of government failure that I've ever seen because of the magnitude of the shooting and the level of failure at every level. And to have the left continually mock our beliefs of believing in the Second Amendment, that our gun rights exist to protect us from a state that is incompetent. Well, I don't understand how people can laugh and say that's not valid when every single day there seems to be another account of how the government completely fails to protect us.
Hey, it's Johnny Rocket with the Liberty League of Podcasters. I don't know what show this is. I think it's episode 5 or 6 or whatever.
5.
It's 5. Anyways, though, I am the host for this week, and it's awesome to be here. As always, we have Chris Spangle from We Are Libertarians. Chris, how are you, and what have you been up to?
I am wonderful, and it is almost 50 and sunny, and so I'm enjoying the spring weather that we're having here in Indiana, which I know is nothing for you guys out on the West Coast.
It's actually been freezing out here in LA.
Really?
It is.
I'm not joking. I mean, by freezing, I mean like mid-50s.
Boo.
Hi, I'm Mark Clare of Lions of Liberty.
Yeah.
And that was Roger Paxton of the Lava Flow booing me.
How cold does it get there in the winter, Roger?
So in December, we had a really early winter this year. In December, it got, was many days over 2 weeks that were, around 0 degrees, even below. But then the rest of the winter has been pretty mild. We had a 72-degree day last week. I mean, that's insane.
So your weather's exactly like ours then. We had that 75-degree day, and everybody was out in shorts. It was great.
Yeah. Didn't last long, though, because the next day was like 32. So
Right on. And now we have Roger Paxton from the Lava Flow. Roger, how are you, and are you drinking?
I'm drinking Coke Zero right now, actually.
There
I
you
don't
go.
have anything to drink because it's too early in the day, but I'm doing great. Things have been going fantastic for Pax Libertas. We've added 2 new podcasts in the last few weeks. Anarcho-Christian, which is evaluating the relationship between the Christian and the state, and that's at anarchochristian.com. And One Free Family, which is a new take on peaceful parenting, and you can check that one out at onefreefamily.com. If you have kids, if you deal with kids, or if you just want to learn how to communicate better with anybody, it's a great podcast. Both of these are fantastic.
What if you just want to be a kid again?
Well, yeah, that too, yeah.
And last but not least, my brother from another mother who has been recently sicker than a dog, Mr. Mark Clare from the Lions of Liberty. Mark, how are you, sir?
Aquaman, swift and powerful monarch of the ocean.
I'm doing okay, man. I mean, you pretty much summed it up.
Are you
I was a
feeling
little
better,
sick.
though? Are you
I'm
feeling
getting better? I'm good enough to do a League of Liberty podcast because this shit is important. And our fans have been waiting way too long for the Fallout episode.
Right.
Oh, boy. On that note, I feel that I should probably take that from here. And, first things first, I want to offer my good friend Chris Spangle an apology because while I believe in what I said, I should not have said it the way that I said it. And I should not have been as forceful and as aggressive as I was. And so, Chris, I just want to offer an apology to you for it.
Well, I appreciate that, and I accept your apology. And likewise, I want to apologize because it just got too heated, and you and I have a fun back and forth. But when it feels like we're actually fighting, then everybody gets real uncomfortable, as all of the emails told me.
Well, it was uncomfortable as fuck, and that's the thing, is our back and forth has always been fun, and I took it too far, and that was shitty of me. So,
well, I appreciate that, and if there was, I certainly didn't intend to misrepresent anything that you said. I was I was guilty of talking in generalities more than you specifically, but I do want to apologize for that. And I appreciate that you're apologizing. And Roger and I have always had spirited disagreements. You know what? And it's part of it is for the show. It did get a little too uncomfortable, and I want to apologize to the listeners for that, just because I know several people were very uncomfortable with it, and I really debated about whether or not we should put it out, because the back and forth between Roger and I is only fun if people understand that he and I respect each other. And when you take it, when we put out something that is like, ooh, that's too real, I really debated not putting it out, but I was like, you know what? The other three want to put it out, and I'm not going to be a bitch. So, so let it go, and the fallout be what it may. So
peer pressure is the best currency in
right. Yeah,
at the end of the day, it stung in the moment, but I know who I am, and I know what I am, and I know what I am not. And Roger can have his opinions, and if his opinions of me I don't feel are accurate, his perception of me doesn't actually affect how I feel about myself. It affects how he and I interact. And, if looking back going, all right, well, if he has that perception of me, then how am I presenting myself to Roger? How are we interacting with each other? We've got some work to do in that respect, and that's what it really comes down to. I mean, and so I know for a lot of the listeners, it was just a little too uncomfortable. And for that, I apologize. I mean, we got a little too heated, and, I felt pretty, shitty about it, especially a couple days later watching Jordan Peterson on that Channel 4 interview and seeing how he handled somebody who was just so outside of, she was just completely misrepresenting. I mean, I'm sure all of our listeners are aware of that. So what you're saying is you like to murder babies and children and you eat the hots, and he never once raised his voice, and it just was a little humbling to go, you know what, I don't have to disagree with somebody and become heated. So
we both definitely handled that wrong, without a question. I started it, but your reaction to me, was more valid than my initial reaction for sure. But we both could have handled that better. And as friends for a very long time now, there's no doubt that we should have handled that better, for sure.
Absolutely.
So, but I accept full responsibility for it, because I started with the really negative comments, so I accept full responsibility. And I even lost a sponsor, not a sponsor, but a patron over that. One of my $2.50 patrons. Within 3 hours of me dropping that episode, he was gone. So it's like shit. But things happened. We moved past them, and Chris, I still respect you, and I still consider you a friend. I hope that you feel the same way, and we can take our pod beef and continue it on in a much more respectful manner. Well, it's funny because I actually moderated 2 panels at Liberty Forum this year about podcasting. One of them was for big podcasters like Jack Spirko and Vin Armani, and one was for local podcasters. And we actually talked about pod beefing quite a bit. And there's several podcasts, not just you and I, that do that, because it really does, it shows that, we can disagree respectfully, but it also is good for the listeners because they get to hear different opinions about different things. So I think that, doing that is great, but we just crossed a line.
Yeah, I mean, people are like, "Oh, well, do you want me to attack Roger?" I'm like, "No, I didn't drop supporting your show, and I advertise your 3 shows at the beginning of every one of my shows because I believe in what you're doing." And Roger and I, while we are in agreement, I would say within 95% of where we should head as a society.
Yeah, at least
it doesn't mean that we disagree on probably style more than substance. But it doesn't mean that Roger doesn't put out a valuable product that I want to promote and I want people to listen to. And I don't have any beef with Roger. I don't have any beef. I said that the next day. I was like, we're not, there's not, 1996 town cars rolling outside of Roger's house ready to mow him down in a drive-by shooting. So we don't have to take that to a pot. I don't have a beef with anybody. I don't think there's anybody. I've jokingly picked a fight with, Alex Merced once because he left us off of a Libertarian podcast list, but I just don't believe in that. I believe that everybody has a value to liberty if they're actually promoting liberty, and I think Roger serves a purpose, and that Roger is an extremist, and he would argue that. I'm sure you would identify that way in the views of, and that's necessary for us to have a conscience as a movement, because you've got to have that guidepost where everybody measures themselves against.
Well, and you're absolutely right. As a matter of fact, a couple of weeks ago, I received a 1-star review. I think it's my first 1-star review on my podcast, where a guy said, "Oh, Roger's one of those radicals you should be warned about." And I considered that, one of the best reviews I ever received, because yes, I identify as a radical, and like you said, there is a need for that. There's also a need for more people who are more pragmatic and not as radical. But I fill that niche, and I fill it because I enjoy it, but also because it's how I believe. And, I believe that, being radical is the end goal for all of us, or at least it should be, because, people say I'm a Puritan. Well, what's the alternative? To be unpure? I mean, that's not an alternative for me. So
it's funny because
Go ahead, Mark.
No, it's just funny. Like okay, well, you'll say like Roger is radical amongst us or amongst libertarians,
right?
And maybe we'll say Chris is like moderate or something. But if you take any of the four of us and put us in the real world, we're all fucking radical as hell.
That's exactly right.
Yeah, like mom and dad are looking at all of us like, who are these weirdos?
I don't know that I've ever heard Roger say anything that I actually fundamentally disagree with. I mean, other than maybe what are the topics? Like Roger wouldn't do my show, and I wouldn't do Roger's show in the way that we do our shows. Like we do, I think all four of us, the reason that we really decided about a year or so ago to do this is because we have different things to say, but we also come at it from different angles and different styles, and we all have the same level of interest in what we do. And, I think Roger and I, Roger does his show. He couldn't do it any other way, and I couldn't do my show in any other way. I do it with honest questioning about everything. And Roger does his with a massive amount of surety. He's very assured of his point of view. And those are two different styles, but it doesn't mean that I think any of the four of us disagree. Johnny Adams, what about you?
Well, I'll tell you what. I agree with you that we do have different styles. I mean, I think I'm probably very, very close to Roger in the extreme department. Definitely extreme. But at the same time, I do believe in a pragmatic approach to reach those extreme goals.
Well, it's like William Lloyd Garrison said. He basically said, as he was an abolitionist of slavery, and he says, we have to scream it from the rooftops. We have to ask for immediate change, but we will take incremental change in the interim. But we still have to be, yelling from the rooftops for that immediate change to dissolve slavery. And I'm the same way about the state. We have to scream, end the state. We hate the state. We have to end it. But we'll accept these incremental, changes as they happen. So
yes,
I agree.
With you, Johnny. Yeah, I'm with you on that, man. And it's important that we keep our focus in on why the state sucks. And it's a complete bullshit organization that people have propped up for years and years and years. And it's up to us as libertarians to tell people we don't need the state at all. We can do this by ourselves, and we can let capitalism and free markets work its way out in the wash.
And to that, I think, and I want to change subjects if we can, if anybody doesn't have anything to say. But you look at this recent school shooting, and it just, I'm not a libertarian because I'm greedy and selfish. I'm libertarian because the government just doesn't work. And there is absolutely no doubt in my mind that more liberty, more freedom is better for society. And there hasn't been anything that has proven it more than what just happened, in Parkland, Florida, where you have the government. It's not 39 times that the local police were called out. It was only 28, they say, where 28 times the local police department was called to this kid's house. The FBI had 2 different tips. 4 sheriff's officers were outside of the school cowering in fear instead of actually going in and stopping him from, injuring 14 and killing 17. And it is one of the most breathtaking displays of government failure that I've ever seen because of the magnitude of the shooting and the level of failure at every level. And to have the left continually mock our beliefs of believing in the Second Amendment, that our gun rights exist to protect us from a state that is incompetent. Well, I don't understand how people can laugh and say that's not valid when every single day there seems to be another account of how the government completely fails to protect us.
And these people are still calling for government solutions to these problems. And that just blows my mind. Like these kids. And, a lot of people are against these kids because, well, they're kids. What do they know? And it's not like that for me. My issue with them is the hypocrisy and the cognitive dissonance it takes to see that the government failed over and over again to cause this or to allow this to happen. And yet they still want government solutions to these problems. Fuck that noise.
I'm with you guys, and that's the problem. It's if a police department doesn't do a good job, right? You can complain and complain. Does anyone get fired? No, they don't. If you actually had a free market that was replaced by security, we just had security instead of police officers, we would have competition between those agencies, and it'd be more effective than what we have with the state. The state, if they fuck up, no one gives a shit. You write the mayor, or you write your city council, whatever, but they're not going to do anything. There's no changes that are going to be made. They have a monopoly of force, and it's bullshit.
Well, what
17 kids died, and the sheriff got to retire with his full benefits. He's
not
right.
It wasn't the sheriff that retired. It was the resource officer that sat out and cowered in a fucking corner while this was going on, and he was hearing kids screaming while they're being slaughtered. And he got to retire, and he gets to keep all of his benefits because he works for the state, and the state isn't going to change that. Now, if he worked for a private company, I guarantee you that private company would say, you didn't do your fucking job. You're not getting your fucking pay. You're not getting your shit for this.
Amen.
And that's the way it should be.
And not only that, it came out there were 4 total officers that were there during the entire event, armed officers that just cowered behind the building while kids got shot. Imagine if that was a company, like you said, that was competing for, security contracts. I mean, not only would they be fired, they might be in jail for breach of contract, or maybe not jail, but facing some sort of market justice,
some sort of a repercussion. Absolutely.
Right.
And, the three of the officers responded to it, so I can understand why it would be more difficult for them to get into the area. But this officer, the resource officer, was in the building. He was in one of the offices when this started, and then he went outside after it started. I mean, that is just a fucking coward. So, and not to mention, it's completely against the police tactics that police are trained on after Sandy Hook. They're now trained that you get in there and you find the shooter and you take him out as quickly as possible to stop these sorts of things. This guy was trained that way. That's been confirmed by the sheriff of the county. He was trained that way and still just completely didn't do it because he was a coward.
It really is incredible that we can have on one end of things, we'll see people justify police shootings of, say, Philando Castile because they were afraid he might have a gun or might have been reaching for a gun in so many situations where it's just an officer and a black guy or a brown guy or even a white guy who just gets shot because the officer was scared for his life. Meanwhile, you have kids being fucking murdered and he can hear it and he does nothing, and that's okay too. It's really amazing.
But it's the NRA's fault.
Yep.
That's the amazing thing is that they're not blaming the people who had there was a policy in Broward County that someone in the area put out on Twitter. It was like the Lone Wolf. I'll put it in the Legal Liberty Facebook group where he basically outlined how too many kids in Broward County were getting popped for all these various offenses, and it was making the school system look bad. And so the local police department and the school came up with a solution: just stop arresting kids for crimes. And it led to a complete degeneration of the school, where police officers in the local area, anytime they'd find someone committing a victimless crime, they wouldn't arrest them, which is great. But then it started to creep into crimes where there were actual victims weren't even being charged, and it led to sort of a revolt in the police department and erosion in the local town when it came to arresting students. That's not being discussed. Nobody's talking about that, and the guy basically has sourced it. And you can basically just look at all the sources and the original documents he had. That's not being discussed. The sheriff's department, where the guy went on TV and lied and blamed the NRA. The sheriff was on TV calling Dana Lash a liar. It's not the people who had direct responsibility for protecting the community. It's the NRA. It's insane.
All I have to say is don't ban guns, just ban public schools. How's that?
Yes, absolutely. Get your kids out of government indoctrination centers, no doubt. But, Chris, you mentioned the NRA, and I haven't been a fan. I actually dropped my membership from them, a decade ago, because they are so compromising in their in so many situations. Oh, well, we have to be open for some restrictions. Well, bullshit, we do, and that's why I'm a supporter of Gun Owners of America. I've been a member of theirs for over a decade now, and I mean they are, like Ron Paul said, the only no compromise gun lobby in Washington. So, look,
they refused to endorse Donald Trump as the NRA did because
Right.
anyone that looks at Donald Trump knows he's not a staunch advocate of gun rights. He's probably better than Hillary would have been, but he's already suggesting, several expansions to gun laws and has in the past. So, I love that they refused to do that, that gun owners refused to do that. They said, no, we're not going to go endorse someone just because he's maybe a slightly lesser evil. We don't compromise. We don't fuck around. They're a far superior organization to the NRA. I'm in a weird situation here because I'm starting to date a little bit here in Los
Nice.
Angeles, and every chick, I just assume, and probably correctly, every chick is anti-gun, which is correct.
my wife is
where I am.
not. Just saying, my wife carries her pistol everywhere she goes.
I mean, every chick here in Los Angeles that I'm going to meet, most likely. Like, that's what I have to assume anyway, going in. But it's like, it's so hard to even, it's like a subject you don't want to broach because the second you even start to defend a gun right, like, you're like, unless I come at this the right way, they're probably going to think I'm a fucking monster immediately, just because of how ingrained that anti-gun culture is out here. It's crazy.
What's really funny though, guys, is I was in the dating scene here for a while, and you're absolutely right.
You're already out?
What's that? No.
What's his name?
His name is Jennifer. But yeah, most chicks here in the left coast definitely are anti-gun, and they don't understand economics. And usually the girls that I have dated, they seem to be open to the ideas that I'm preaching to them. They just think I'm crazy. But I actually brought one to a libertarian convention here in Washington, and I signed her up. I'm like, you're going to learn. I kind of want to change the subject for a second, and I want your opinion on this. And I know I know actually what you guys believe, but it's something that's really interesting. It's kind of frustrating. I have a good friend, and he had a DUI here in Washington, and this person cannot drive their vehicle without blowing into this interlock thing. And it was one time in their life. So this person did not injure anyone's property or hurt anyone or whatever. They were just over the .07, whatever it is here. What do you guys think of DUIs, and what do you guys think of driving under the influence, and is it a state issue? I'm gonna give it to Chris because he's the statist one here.
Thank you. I think it's a ridiculous notion that the government controls the roads in the first place. Like, part of the reason that I was late to the podcast was that I'm driving down a city in Indianapolis where they would have to spend 10 times the current city budget to fix all the potholes in the city of Indianapolis, and they're just bad at paving the roads. They're bad at policing the roads. They're bad at pretty much everything. So in terms of licensing vehicles and licensing people to drive, I think it's a ridiculous notion. In terms of DUIs, I do think there is some shared responsibility because you do have the ability to hurt someone. So putting a breathalyzer in a car, to me, seems to be a fairly decent compromise. I have a friend who just got his 5th DUI, and he can never have a license again. So he's in his 30s, and he can never have a driver's license again. That seems way too over the top in terms of punishing somebody. But I don't know. That's a tough question because there is, when you're driving a car, you not only have to have some level of trust in yourself, but also the people that are driving around you. So let's go to the purest answer for Roger. Tell us what to think, Roger.
Thank you for that. No, I do believe that a vehicle could be used as a weapon regardless of whether someone is drunk or not. Driving a vehicle is dangerous. I mean, we lose 40,000 people a year on our roads to vehicular accidents. So I don't think adding some impairment really makes a difference. It's still a victimless crime until someone's property or someone has been injured. There's no crime as far as I'm concerned. But I will say that part of the problem is because we're on government roads, and the government doesn't do a good job of patrolling and taking care of those roads the way that they should. So if you have a private road system, clearly the private road owners are going to make it restrict people from driving on their roads drunk, and they are going to patrol that a lot better than the government ever can or ever would want to. So immediately, your roads are going to be safer if they're in private hands. I think the answer to this, just like everything else, is get the government out of our fucking roads. Give me my roads. Give me my private roads.
So I would say that in a private road system, I mean, it wouldn't be mandatory, but the breathalyzer in the car would be something that if I were part of the local road society, I would go, yeah, that's a pretty fair compromise. Let's put them in all the cars. And then you could say, I'm not going to do that. But it comes down to personal responsibility. And he is not being a responsible person if you're driving drunk. You're not a responsible person. There's plenty. Think of how many lives Uber has saved. I mean, I don't think that gets talked enough. But
I agree
all
with
my
that.
friends,
Yes,
none of them
absolutely.
drive drunk anymore. Not like when I was, in my early 20s. Now, all the kids in their early 20s that I know, they all Uber. They're all way more responsible with how they get home at the end of a night out at the bars. So it seems to me that like the breathalyzer in the car is a pretty decent compromise. But let's go to our resident bar crawler, Mark Clare, who has this issue, I would imagine, quite often. How do you handle it?
I have crawled through a bar or two in my day. No doubt about it. I think it's kind of ridiculous that we have this system where we specifically hone in on alcohol. And I'm totally against driving drunk. And like you said, I think it's amazing what Uber and Lyft have done because, like you said, I don't know anyone that drives drunk at all anymore. I mean, and 10 years ago, that was not the case. Maybe some of that is just getting older and more mature. But a big part of that is that it was impossible to get cabs. In Los Angeles, you have to take cars everywhere. And, a lot of times people just gave up on the cab or would just say, screw it, I'll just drive. I'm feeling okay. Now, no one even thinks twice. Everyone Ubers and Lyfts everywhere. If I'm even going to dinner and I know I'm going to have 2 drinks, I just Uber or Lyft. I mean, it's not even a question. It's so affordable, especially compared to the cost of what a DUI will do or what, God forbid, harming someone or harming yourself in a vehicle will do, that I don't even think twice about it. But it is funny that we focus so much, and I mean the state, on, a 0.02 or 0.04, whatever this random number is. Meanwhile, it's totally legal to go a week without sleeping and drive. It should be about what you're doing and the danger you're actually causing in reality, as opposed to these arbitrary distinctions. Some people can have 4 beers and probably not feel it at all. I feel like Roger could toss a few back and be totally fine. Other people might have a half a glass of vodka and be just atrocious at driving. Other people might go 3 days without sleeping and be the worse than any of those people. So it's really a very arbitrary distinction that's made, as you might imagine it would be, through the state.
It's subjective.
Yeah, and I would say that we're all guilty. Probably all of us are guilty of texting and driving, which at some point is going to become the main reason that people get into car crashes over alcohol, if it isn't already. And, like Apple on their device, if you drive with an Apple, it now has a little feature that says you have to click I'm not driving. And it's a great little reminder. I'll pick up my phone and I'll see that and it'll stop me and it'll go, hey, yeah, I need to put this down. Because everybody's had that experience where you go 5 minutes and you've not looked at the road and you go, what am I doing? I'm not only putting myself at risk, but others at risk. And part of the problem with a society that is structured around government, it strips you of your ability to think about your actions on other people, because your brain outsources the responsibility to the state. The state will keep people, I don't need a gun, my child will be safe at school because there's a resource officer. Instead of going, it's my responsibility to make sure my child is safe, what is the school doing about it? It's my responsibility to make sure that I don't wreck this car when I drive. How am I going to be a responsible member of the community? So, I would say that a breathalyzer is a better compromise than having to ride a Dewey scooter.
Okay, well, here's the part 2 of the question, is this individual also has to go to AA meetings. State mandatory. So the state has to send them to a AA meeting, and they have to sit there and say, I'm an alcoholic, and say, which I am, but I'm not going there. Fuck that bullshit. But like,
No, this is your AA meeting, Johnny.
that's right.
Right.
I'm Johnny. I'm an alcoholic. Fuck off. But what it does, though, to me, it's like dehumanizes the person, where it breaks them down to say, I have a disease. First of all, I don't believe it's a disease. It's a habit. It's a behavior, right? I love to drink, but it's my choice. No one is forcing this fucking bottle in my hand, which I'm drinking vodka. No one's forcing me to drink vodka or whiskey or whatever the fuck I'm drinking, right? But it is, if somebody has cancer, that's a fucking disease. You know what I mean? If I had cancer, I would beat the shit out of somebody who's an alcoholic saying I have a disease. I'd be like, fuck off, right? But I have a problem with AA because the courts are making it mandatory for people to go to this quasi-religious organization. And it is. I've looked them up and I've done some research, and I really think it's kind of bullshit. What do you guys think?
I've been to Al-Anon meetings, which are like the members of the family that have an alcoholic in it, and I found that it was, I don't know, the model is outdated. You go there, and a lot of times in AA, or there are people who benefit from AA, and I don't want to shit on it because I think, lives are saved through that program. But the lives that are saved through that program are the people who want to be there. And a court forcing someone to go to something like an AA system, if their heart isn't ready to accept all that teaching, then it's not going to work. So it just becomes a feel-good solution for the judge to look like he's doing something, as opposed to, letting them sort themselves out. And that's why I'm against it. I've found that in AA, in Al-Anon, when I went, it was a lot of people who were kind of like you said, like stewing in their own disease, as opposed to feeling that they weren't really regaining their power. They were getting their power from the group and not necessarily from their individual self. So,
yep.
If it works for people, then it works for them. But in my experience, personally, it just wasn't something that I was into.
Roger, go ahead.
Well, this is a tough one for me. I mean, I do see where alcoholism can be a disease. I had a friend of mine's dad who was an alcoholic, and he had serious issues with it, and he was not able to get off of it until he, dealt with the underlying issue, which was depression. And as soon as he was diagnosed with depression and was put on depression medications, he was able to get away from the alcoholism. So I think that the alcoholism, while maybe not be the disease itself, it is a result or a symptom of an underlying condition in a lot of cases, and not all cases. When I was in college, I was, about as damn close as you can get to being an alcoholic as possible for about 3 or 4 years there. I mean, I would drink myself to where I passed out, and I would get up the next morning and start drinking every day. That
was my college experience.
Right. But my problem is it continued on after college, after I flunked out of college for a while. Finally, I just made the decision, it was a tough one, but I finally made the decision to just not drink. So I didn't drink for almost 5 years. And, thankfully I didn't have to go to Alcoholics Anonymous. But my issue with the state mandating this is that Alcoholics Anonymous is a religious organization. I mean, one of the steps is to, find your God and deal with your God or whatever. And that is a huge issue with me for the separation of church and state. I don't think the government should be mandating anything that has any sort of religious connotation to it whatsoever.
Well, the way that they get around it is that the higher power concept is not it's not a Christian or a religious God. The higher power can be something else, which I found it like, okay, you're jumping through hoops. But in terms of the disease thing, I think Roger touched on it. Like, I love to overeat and overspend, and the times when I have been more out of control, I emotionally eat and I spend too much money, and that is how I kind of dealt with those feelings. And the reason that I never drank, I've only had one drop of alcohol when I was 15. I just never drank because I have a very addictive personality, and I wanted to be responsible and not give myself a problem. And I wouldn't have become an alcoholic if let's say I did become an alcoholic. I wouldn't have become an alcoholic because I was genetically predisposed or I had something wrong with my brain or my body that forced me to drink. It's healing and it's trying to self-medicate an inner issue. And so the concept of it being a disease, in my opinion, Johnny, is I don't think it's a disease. I think it's something where it's a symptom of a deeper problem, and that's where people kind of have that problem accessing it. Once they can fix that, like Roger's friend's dad, then it ceases to be a disease. It's just a coping mechanism.
Well, I just like to get high and get fucked up. Like I do. I'm not going to lie. But at the same time, it's a behavior. I mean, like I'm choosing to drink. No one's putting a gun to my head and saying, you got to drink. But I also think there's something to say about moderation, too. I mean, there's been days where I haven't drank. Very rarely, but it has happened. And well, I always smoke. But, I mean, I just think that we need to look at different alternatives. I mean, I don't think that the government should be using it as a way to send people to, instead of going to jail, go to AA. I mean, that's bullshit. What I think they should do is there's a lot of people. I think it starts with you as the individual. If you want to quit, fucking quit. If you don't like drinking or it's hurting your life, then fucking quit. And I think we should look towards the person to say, you know what, maybe I shouldn't drink as much. Maybe I'll have 1 beer instead of 8, which is hard sometimes because, you're getting that, your judgment goes after beer 8, you might have 12. But I don't know. I think I think there is a problem. And I think you're right, Chris. I think it's a symptom of something else. I think most people drink to escape, like the Pina Colada song. And
if you like pina coladas and getting caught in the rain, if you're not...
Okay, bad joke. But
can you please edit a clip of the Pina Colada song?
I will. I'll throw it in there.
If you like pina coladas, is that what we're talking about? No editing required now. You can just use me. I mean, I have no doubt that programs like Alcoholics Anonymous do help some people, or other similar programs. I just, like you guys, I don't want the state mandating that anybody do anything really, but that anybody go to even if we accept that the state should mandate some kind of you have to fix yourself situation, which I don't, but they shouldn't favor a specific organization to do so. I mean, maybe they just say, prove you haven't drank for 30 days, get tested for alcohol every day. I don't like those solutions either, to be clear, but I don't like the idea of like you have to go to this specific organization, religious or not. I don't know if AA gets money for these people.
They do.
I don't know how that works. I don't know why they're specifically chosen as a go-to organization where there are many other organizations that might help people based on where they're coming from. Some people might like that 12 steps religious approach, and it might actually work for them. And to me, whatever works, do it, But for other people, it might just take like slapping yourself in the face or having a friend lock you in a room for a week and telling you to get your shit together. So there's not a one-size-fits-all policy. And as always, that's one of the big problems with the state. They apply a one-size-fits-all solution to every single fucking problem, including alcoholism. Or even in this case, the guy might not even be an alcoholic. He might have just had a bad night and made a stupid decision one night. It doesn't mean he's necessarily an alcoholic. So they're applying this alcohol brand to anybody that fucks up one time. Plenty of people get drunk and do something stupid that aren't alcoholics.
That's right.
Going to the question you had about funding, generally those sorts of things are self-funded. So if you're required to go to AA by the state, you still have to pay the bill for that. But that's beside the point.
So AA still gets the money, though.
Yeah, the AA still gets the money, and it's because of government fiat. And that is just disgusting to me. So, whatever.
Interesting. All right. Any more topics you guys want to bring up? Whatever.
Johnny, what'd you say?
I said, do you have any topics you want to bring up, Chris? Besides your gay porn.
My topic was the gun thing. I have, and maybe not back to the actual tool itself, but maybe the discourse around it. It has been, I would say that in my 20 years of following politics really closely, this has been the worst week. I mean, as bad as the week of 9/11, where it was just you had this tragic news, but everybody was together then. This week, it's not only a horrible tragedy, but nobody's listening to each other. Like that CNN town hall was basically a 1984 2 minutes hate. I mean, it was just the opportunity for an arena full of people to scream at a senator and a talk show host who disagreed with them. I mean, it wasn't it was an emotional exercise. It wasn't any kind of real debate. It's just depressing how little people are actually talking to each other and discussing. It is just yelling. It is like these kids just got up and yelled at the senator and didn't wait for a response. They weren't asking a question because they had a curiosity about what he believes. They just had already assumed and just wanted to yell at a question to trap him. And that just is a really bad place for our society to start getting to.
All right, Roger, how about you, man? You have anything you want to bring up?
I mean, not really. Just So I've talked about the new podcasts that are coming out for the Lava for Pax Libertas Productions, which is fantastic. One thing I do want to talk about is let's talk about PorkFest.
That's what I want to talk about too.
Yeah. So as you guys may or may not know, my wife and I have been suckered into being the co-producers for PorkFest 15. And so we're in, process of getting that going right now. As a matter of fact, early bird tickets are on sale right now. So before March 1st, you can go to porkfest.com and get your early bird tickets, $30 off. Part of what we're trying to do with this is take PorkFest back to, we're trying to make PorkFest great again. So we're trying to get back to that kind of do-it-yourself workshop, where you go in, you learn some things, you're learning DIY stuff, you're going to workshops, and you come away a better human being. I mean, you just come away with so much new knowledge and education, and you get to hear some cool speakers, and you get to hang out with a bunch of anarchists for a week. I mean, does life get any better than that? And there'll be some statists there too, some minarchists. But so what I'm trying to do is bring in a new type of people to this event. We've had the big names, we've had all this stuff, but we've missed a lot of the average names in Liberty, like, podcasters like Mark and Chris and Johnny and things like that. So I'm working really hard to get these three guys to PorkFest to come hang out with us for a week and hang out with you guys for a week, more importantly, and, do things like we'll probably end up doing a live recording of this show of League of Liberty podcast. And I'm hoping that each individual podcaster will do their own live show for their podcasts and maybe even, some sort of a panel or something with us. But the cool thing is, if these guys come, then that means that anybody who buys a ticket gets to come and hang out with some of the best podcasters in Liberty. And that's just fantastic. So definitely check out Podcast. Please come to it. It is the premier Liberty event in the country, and you don't want to miss it.
Hell yeah. And we are...
I'm excited, man. This is awesome. I mean, PorkFest, I'm going to do everything I can to come out there. I wanted to get the band back together, and I'm hoping that will happen. But if not, I will still try to make it over there. But I have an update. Liberty Force Comic has a new website. So I'm working on that website right now, and it looks really good. So I'm working on issue 2 still because I'm lazy, and I'm still working on it. But it should be out shortly. And Liberty Force has a remake on the website, so it looks really good. So I'm really excited about that. So by the time this airs, Liberty Force will be up and running again.
Cool.
I said updates. Do you have anything new, Mark?
Yeah, man. Well, it kind of plays off what Roger was talking about with PorkFest a little bit. We are our next goal for the Lions of Liberty Pride is to hit $1,000 a month. And as soon as we do that, that triggers our trip to PorkFest. That seals it, signed, certified, delivered. So if any League of Liberty listeners out there are members of one of the other podcasts, and that's great, keep supporting them. But if you can even toss as little as $5 a month over to the Lions of Liberty Pride, lionsofliberty.com/support, you can help send me and my entire crew. I'm not just talking about me, not just Brian, not just Odie. Our entire crew is trying to go to PorkFest. So we're trying to send everybody there, even our supporting cast, you might call them, Howie, Rico, JB. These are all guys I've been friends with for close to 20 years, and we haven't all seen each other in a really long time in person. So not only are you getting to send us to PorkFest to produce some of these podcasts, we're hoping to do a live Libertarians in Living Rooms Drinking Liquor. If you guys get there, we're hoping to do a live League of Liberty podcast. We're really excited about all that, but you get to help us reunite with some good friends in addition. So that's just a very exciting prospect. We've been talking about doing a reunion of sorts anyway, so if we can do it at this event, that's even better. We're actually up to, listen to this, it's a funny number, $896.36 a month, because I guess a few people donate us some weird amounts. But we are very, very, very close to that goal of hitting $1,000 a month. So we appreciate anybody else that wants to chip in and have access to all the great audio we do over at Lions of Liberty and the Lions of Liberty Pride. But yeah, we want to come out to PorkFest, man. We're excited. We're making it happen, and we're looking forward to meeting you guys, hopefully, and making some audio magic happen there.
I was going to say, as a Pride member, I've got to say that one of the best values on the internet is what you get being a Pride member of Lions of Liberty, because they are just cranking out the content left and right. And, I got to say, it's 3 guys or 4 guys or, doing all of this. So they've got a little bit of a help. The only podcast that I subscribe to, that I give money to that's a better value is Brian Sovereign's Sovereign Tech. And that dude is putting out something almost every day, and he's by himself. But other than him, you guys are just killing it as far as putting out content. So hats
thanks,
off to you
Roger.
guys.
Thanks, man. Yeah, we've fallen back the last couple of weeks just because I've been moving and I've been sick, but thank God the other guys are still going. I mean, there's not a week that goes by where we don't get at least an audio clip or two out there. Sometimes it's just us bullshitting for 30 minutes, but that's something our fans really seem to enjoy as well. And then we've always got the Conspiracy Corner, which we'll be doing again in the next week or two, and of course League of Liberty and a bunch of other random podcasts we do. We really pride, if you will, pride we put pride into our work because we really appreciate that people put their hard-earned money and give it to us. I mean, I'm out there working every day and trying to earn money myself, and I have to make some serious decisions when I decide who to give money to and who not to. So I definitely appreciate it massively when people do that for us. So we try to make sure that people get value for that money. So we're constantly looking to put content out there.
Yeah, that's. I think all of us want to go to Porkfest. We all want to go. It's a matter of our listeners supporting us because it does. I don't know about you guys, but it costs a lot to run a podcast network. and so you also want to put it into promoting the podcast. I've been fortunate enough to get invited to Radio Row at Students for Liberty's LibertyCon next weekend. So
nice.
I will be in Washington, D.C. next weekend, and I had a few listeners step up to help contribute, the airfare, the materials to pass out, the hotel rooms. All told, it's, a $600 weekend, but I only can go and do that because we have Patreon subscribers, in addition to keeping the lights on, but also helping us do extra. So I am going to Vegas for my brother. He's getting married and decided to have a wedding in the middle of an election season with conventions. I can't believe his selfishness. So I want to go to Porkfest, and I also want to go to the National Libertarian Convention. So if you want to make this happen, you've got to contribute to our 4 podcasts because the spirit is willing, but the wallet is weak.
Well, I will say this, Chris, that there is no comparison between Porkfest and National Libertarian Convention. I've been to both several times. And while the National Libertarian Convention is, it's great and all, it is nothing compared to Porkfest. Porkfest is just basically a week-long party and a week-long family reunion where we're hanging out with, old friends and new friends. I mean, it is just an absolute incredible time. So if you got to pick between the two, man, I'm begging you to pick Porkfest because you've been to a national convention. You got to pick Porkfest this time.
Several, yeah. Yeah, I mean, for me, it's a balancing if I go to the national convention, I'm only going to go for a day. I'll probably fly in the morning, stay a night, and then leave because it just, my enthusiasm around the Libertarian Party, I don't want to, it's in vogue to shit on the Libertarian Party, and I'm just kind of sick of it because it's just cliche at this point. And I see Stefan Molyneux and Tom Woods doing a podcast where they're once again shitting on the Libertarian Party. It's like, what new and unique thing can anybody say about the Libertarian Party at this point? We all get it. And I think it's starting to get to a point where hating on the Libertarian Party is just now becoming counterproductive because there are a lot of people who are very enthusiastic in that organization, do a lot of great work, and there are a lot of my people that are going to the national convention, so I do want to get the chance to meet listeners, and that's really what it comes down to. Is getting the chance to promote our podcast, but also meet listeners and meet each other. I've met Roger, but I'd love to meet Johnny and Mark as well.
Well, I will say this about the national convention, or about the National Party. I have my issues with the National Party, of course, and I'm going to talk about those issues. But as I was having a conversation with some the cool Liberty folks I get to hang out with on a regular basis because I live in New Hampshire, yesterday we were talking, and I made the case that I would not be the libertarian I am today if it weren't for the Libertarian Party. Because when I was a neocon Republican who thought I knew what liberty was, when I started reading Ron Paul and started reading Ayn Rand, I needed a place to jump into. I needed a vehicle to start that process, and that vehicle for me was the Libertarian Party. While I have inherent issues with some of the things they do, knowing that they turned to me, or they at least led me down the path to become the libertarian I am today, I have to thank them for that.
Yeah, it serves a purpose. What do you think, Johnny?
Well, I have an announcement to make. I just rejoined the state and national party. Well, okay.
Wasn't it like one episode ago where you renounced your membership?
Yeah, well, no, it was a while ago. But I do want to say I went to the Washington State Convention, and you know what? there's a lot of good people, and I'm not doing it necessarily for the party. I'm doing it for good libertarians out there, and, they wanted my voice, and I really want to help the party, and the only way to help the party is to be in the party, I think. In certain regards, you can steer the party. I'm part of the Radical Caucus, and so I wanted the Radicals to know I have their back, and I'm really interested in the Mises Caucus. So Michael Heiss is doing the Mises Caucus. He's kind of leading that front, and I do want to show support for those guys. So that is why I joined the party again, just so I could support the Mises Caucus and the Radical Caucus. That is my 2 cents. I'm a member again. God damn it, I'm a traitor. And
that's really key, is you can't sit there and complain if you're not. I mean, well, I guess you can. We're podcasters. We can complain about anything. But if you want to see change, you've really got to get invested. And that's why I do like that the Mises Caucus is jumping back in and getting invested in this. Although I do find some of their tactics lately, be a little more honest. But I'm glad that they're getting involved, because it's what Johnny said. There are a lot of good people involved in the Libertarian Party that create a lot of new libertarians, because people have been so indoctrinated that they'll dip their toe into politics and get involved in the LP, and then they end up like Roger, where they're just, screeching about statism on a podcast and creating even more and more libertarians. So, Johnny, I don't know if I cut you off. Hopefully I didn't. We're having a problem with Johnny's internet. So speak if I cut you off, please.
No, you're good. I'm just saying you're right. I think that the only way we can make a difference is, if we let the statists run the Libertarian Party, we're fucked. So I'm going to be the wild card in our party, and I'm going to piss people off, and that's fine. But we need people like me to keep those fucking people in check. And there's a lot of good radicals and a lot of people who believe in the party and who are as radical as me and Roger are. And we need us to actually keep this party on track. We're not going to do it.
That's why I'm still a part of the Libertarian Party of New Hampshire, and it's still the vice chair, at least for another couple of months, because it is the most uncompromising Libertarian Party in the 50 states. And you can base that on many different factors, but primarily our votes at the National Convention for Gary Johnson, or not for Gary Johnson and Bill Weld, I should say. And that to me is extremely important. As far as the National Libertarian Party goes, they've made a lot of decisions that I fundamentally disagree with. But I do have to say, I kind of feel sorry for all three of you guys that there's really only, one vehicle for you guys to jump on to help with libertarianism in your states. And I have a little bit of pity for you guys because of that. Because here in New Hampshire, we've got the Libertarian Party. We've got the Free State Project. We've got the New Hampshire Foundation for Independence. We've got so many in and out of system activism going on that it's just incredible. I mean, Portsmouth, New Hampshire just became the highest per capita city of crypto accepting brick and mortar stores in the entire world. They literally have a brick and mortar store accepting cryptocurrencies for every 1,000 residents in the city. That's huge. That's incredible. And we're having all of this success in New Hampshire because of the Free State Project. So join the Free State Project and get up here where liberty lives and where we can actually make liberty happen in our lifetimes.
Hey man, we got me and Jason Stapleton out here in LA.
Oh wow.
Two wild and crazy guys. We were actually supposed to go out for drinks this weekend, but I got sick and I had to cancel. By the way, I like how Johnny a year ago is like proclaiming himself a minarchist on his show. Now suddenly he's putting himself in the more radical than me category. Just want to put that out there.
I think that I have a lot to do with that. And Johnny, correct me if I'm wrong. I don't want to toot my own horn, and if it's not true, but based on conversations I've had with Johnny, I think that I might have a little bit to do with that.
Well, I'm going to actually give all the credit. I'm going to give 95% of the credit to Murray Rothbard.
Oh, okay. I'll take that.
Okay. I would have to give it to Murray Rothbard. I read Man, Economy, and State, and it was done. And For New Liberty. And those books changed my life. I had a awakening, more or less. And I would have to, but you guys are, like my friend Rob Stratton and Roger Paxton both have actually leaned me towards the anarchist route. So I'd give you guys 2.5% each.
I'd like to call myself like a suave radical. Like, I'm as radical as you guys. I just don't scare people away.
Okay.
A pragmatic radical? Is that
I'm not pragmatic at all. Fuck that. I want to end everything tomorrow. For tonight, right now.
A pragmatic acting radical, because I'm not saying you come across as pragmatic, but the way you present things, it seems more palatable than the way that I
try to leave myself open to interpretation a little bit, I guess you might say. I like to let everybody speak on my show, and I don't necessarily I'll have somebody on who's running for office who might say some things in that context that I don't agree with. I'm not necessarily going to jump down their throat in the middle of the interview about it, because it's not the format of my program to do that.
Yeah, you definitely make it more palatable than I do, but my show is not for, newer and learning libertarians. My show is for the libertarian that's already there. I mean, my show is kind of inside baseball. It's preaching to the choir kind of thing. So
we're serving different roles.
Right. So from those perspectives, you do what you do very well, and I appreciate what you do, because eventually your listeners will get to the point where they'll be my listeners. So keep it up.
Trickle down liberty.
Right.
Kiss already.
We are. You can't see what's happening on these microphones. We have our own private FaceTime going on.
Yeah, my microphone's about halfway down my throat now. So
that's what that tinny sound is. Well, makeout jokes seemed like a good time to start winding things down, huh?
Yeah, my meat is resting on the counter. I didn't get a chance. I rushed inside and threw my
Chris's
meat
meat is resting on the counter, folks.
I didn't even take a second to put it in the freezer. So
my wife's dealing with my meat right now while I'm up here. So,
oh boy,
oh god,
oh boy.
Okay,
Johnny's dealing with his own meat, and I'm prepping mine.
All right.
Johnny,
anyways, yeah.
Tell us how your meat is and wrap us up.
Well, my meat is fresh. It's grade A. Anyways, so guys, it's Johnny Rocket here with the Liberty League of Podcasters, and we are here with Roger Paxton, Lava Flow,
Hey-o.
Chris Spangle from We Are Libertarians, and the one and only Mark Claire from Lines of Liberty. Guys, thank you so much. We had a good time. We're rocking and rolling. Anyways, though, and I'm Johnny Rocket from the Johnny Rocket Launchpad. So anyways, though, we don't have an exit thing.
Yes, we do. Yes, we do.
What was it? What was it?
We forget every time, and then we remember again.
I'll kick it off. So, for everybody, liberty, fuck yeah! Awesome, guys.